Breakwaters is finally here on Steam Early Access. It will be hitting consoles in the future, but it was about to begin its journey. So go and support this game if you want to check out a really cool open world crafting survival little game. It's up to 4 players, although the devs are experimenting with adding more players playing it, and it's just got some really nice mechanics. I've been playing it a bunch over the last few months, but I've recently started playing it on my second channel, and that's where you're going to see even more guides from me. So if you want extra tips, more ways and shows on how to do stuff in the game, then go and subscribe to my second channel. You're going to be seeing lots of Breakwater content over the next few days and weeks. So let's dive into Breakwaters. There is an NPC that will always give you a bit of guidance, and you'll come across various others in the world that can sometimes sell you stuff or give you a bit of directions with missions. So if you're a bit stuck or not quite sure what to do, then obviously go and double check with him. Otherwise you can actually press the back button or select button on the controller, and this will also show you all your missions and the map. There's actually a skill system in Breakwaters. You pretty much got 3 skills: homesteading, adventuring and exploration. In homesteading you'll gain experience by building stuff, in adventuring you'll gain experience by completing missions and taking on enemies, and exploring is all about finding new islands and locations. And pretty obviously, once they hit their level limit, you'll go on to the next level and you'll get an attribute point. A little pop-up will tell you when you've got one of these to spend. You simply just go into the main menu here and then choose what you want to increase. Now again, they're all pretty simple and they do give you the description, but I am going to run it down for you briefly. Agility is going to give you better sprint and stamina. Endurance is going to boost how much of an item you can stack, not how many slots you have. For that you're going to need backpacks. Constitution is going to give you extra health. Then you've got hydration and hunger bonuses, basically mean you don't have to eat or drink as much. Absolutely, your first 5 or 6 points should be spent on increasing the max amount that you can carry for stacks. This will help you out so much, as there is quite an inventory issue with Breakwaters. In fact, you don't have any, that's the main issue. It can be quite some time before you get a chance to upgrade via some cloth bags and then eventually a backpack. So until that point, when you can get extra slots, you need to make the most out of the stack sizes. So increase that, I would say, for at least the first 5 or 6 points. This will mean you're going to need to eat and drink a little bit more, and you may have to be a bit more careful against combat with other creatures. But on the first starter island, you shouldn't really have ever too many problems or issues. Yes, you'll come across some pirates and other creatures that can damage you, but there's basically lots of ways that you can either feed yourself or get your health back up. You can't just magically increase how much you can carry, so absolutely do it. The basics of all survival games kind of apply. Cooking foods means that you're going to get more out of it. In fact, you can't eat raw meat, but you can eat cooked. You can go ahead and eat berries, but eventually you're going to unlock new recipes that will fulfill your hunger a lot more. You can get water from coconuts that you'll find once you start chopping down some of the palm trees, and you also get water from mussels that you'll find on certain rocks. They're pretty easy to spot, you just got to give it a whack and they should pop open. Although you will need to actually cook them before you get the benefit of the hydration from them. There should be plenty of campfires on the island, especially one near the actual mission giver or quest NPC. You'll need to fill the fuel box in with either wood or branches to actually go ahead and cook your meats, and some are better than others. But you can also use dead rats that you'll find every time you go and hack away at a bush. These can be used to cook food. It takes at least 3 dead rats though to cook 1 piece of meat. As of right now, this is probably the only use for dead rats in the early game. Also worth noting that if you leave dead bodies laying around, particularly some pirates that you come across, they can attract more of the rats. So it could be a good thing, so you could get more to burn, but obviously it's going to be a lot better just to go and chop down some trees and actually use wooden logs. There's only 2 things you can craft without an actual crafting bench in Breakwaters, and that is a shell axe, so you're going to need to go and kill some of the crabs, and also the actual crafting bench itself. You'll find plenty of seagrass once the tide's gone out, and eventually you'll be able to manipulate the water to clear big huge waves of the seabed so you can go and get all the bountiful supply. Obviously chopping down trees with the axe once you've crafted it is going to be a lot quicker and easier. So make sure you do this first before even attempting to make the crafting bench. The actual quest giver kind of says to you to go and get the materials for the actual bench, but obviously it makes much more sense to go and get the axe first. A big issue with Breakwaters, bearing in mind it's early access and things will hopefully change and improve, is that inventory space. things can be washed out by the sea, sometimes important things like quest items, so pay real attention whenever you complete a mission and then talk to an NPC. They'll often give you some new tools or items, so make sure it doesn't just pop out and go away and float with the water. The first starting island really is a tutorial area, so it's pretty big and large and there's quite a lot to do, but you really want to get going to the second area as soon as possible. So to do that you need to make sure you get the crafting bench and then really focus on making exactly what the NPC tells you, which is going to be the yellow crystal or yellow vials. A lot of the other items you're going to see in the crafting bench you won't be able to build because they rely on resources not found in this initial area. So things like red rock as well as iron, you're not going to find them here, you need to go to the next area before you get them, as well as pine logs. Upgrades will basically allow you to chop trees quicker, do more damage. You'll also get bags that you can increase, eventually unlocking a backpack, and these are going to give you additional slots. I highly recommend you do one of these as soon as you can. In combination with putting your points into obviously increasing your stack sizes, this is going to be the best way to proceed so that you've got lots of resources to then go and start building your base or crafting more items. It's slow going, but your axe will suffice in chopping away at the crystals and much more of the resources lying around. You'll sometimes also get weapons later on from killing certain enemies in the game like pirates as well as swords. There are some pirates on this initial starting area just to show you what they're like, but you don't necessarily need to go and mess with them too much. Just stay close to the NPC, gather the resources you need, and then think about getting ready to go to the next stage. You can always come back here eventually once you unlock the ability to make your own boats. To leave this area, you need to actually send a signal out so that you can call forth a pretty much water taxi. But not jumping ahead too much, we still need to do a few things first, like get ourselves a shovel and uncovering some lost treasure. When it comes to harvesting the yellow crystals, there's actually two types. You get the crystals themselves and then you get shards. Later on you'll unlock a crafting bench that you can refine the crystals into shards, and it's the shards that you really need a lot more of, as these are pretty much going to be used to buy all sorts of items from traders, and you'll use them a lot more in certain potions and stuff. And yes, you may have noticed the great big massive titan wandering around the island. You don't have to pay attention to him too much at the moment, he'll pretty much leave you alone, but in the end, that's what we're going to be facing off against. To get off the starting area, you need to craft one of the water pushing potions out. When you've made some of these, the NPC will give you a special map, and he'll also give you a shovel. You do also find other maps on the island, but if you've already opened one, sometimes it'll still show exactly the same position. So it's not going to be multiple pieces of treasure at one location, it's just going to be one particular spot on this part of the world. Now there's a few things we can actually craft and make to help us on our way to getting that, and one of them things is going to be the leaf hat, which is going to give you some shade. This is another crucial early game item you should be able to make fairly easy with just seagrass, and it's going to give you a 50% reduction in dehydration. Just make sure you've actually equipped it. Once you've crafted it, you need to hover over it and press the X button or equip button, and it will go into the inventory slots at the top of the inventory menu. You'll also notice you have one slot for a weapon or a tool, and then the other items you need to carry on you as well. And it's absolutely a good idea to craft at least 2 chests so you can put some of your supplies in while you're adventuring in the early stages. You won't need to build any bases on this beginning island unless you really want to do it out of palm wood. Like I said, you can come back here later on and get more of the same resources that you might not get on the second island, which is mostly pine woods. If you follow the map quest marker, it would take you to this little square pool, and you've basically got to get the water outside of that pool so that you can dig down and unveil the quest item. So make sure you equip your water pushing potion out, aim it, and you should have the reticle pop up, and just aim it directly at the spot. It's pretty forgiving, and you should be able to push out the majority of the water so you can go and dig down with that shovel that you got from the NPC. For whatever reason, if you've lost the shovel, you will be able to craft some later on. This is going to give you the Titan relic, and these are what you're going to need to take on the Titans eventually. In previous versions of the beta, the Titan would actually attack you at this point, but it doesn't do that anymore by the looks of things. That's not to say there won't be any danger. You'll be attacked by a whole bunch of spiders. In fact, there's a whole ton of these. They don't actually drop any resources, but eventually later on you will get spider silk, which you can use. You do get some XP for doing this though, and it will increase your adventuring score, so it's well worth taking them out rather than running away. Once you've killed all these, it's this point that you might want to consider actually gathering up all the bones so that you can make some bone armour. You'll need at least 10 bones, and this is where it will give you a bit of extra protection. 2 coconuts and 20 grass also will be needed. Again, make sure you equip it once you've crafted it. It's not the most extravagant thing, but it still is going to do a bit of extra protection. Once you return to the NPC, he'll give you a special recipe to make the flare, and this is what you're going to call that water taxi with. You're going to need to actually use it, and then it will give you the recipe to go and find the resources first. So don't do what I did and figure that I would be able to use it straight away eventually when I wanted to. I still had to then go and find the extra resources needed to actually craft the flare itself. So the yellow potions, I know they're not potions, they're technically vials, will push water out, and the blue ones will push water in or create water wherever you build it. So these have got some really cool mechanics which I'm absolutely going to dive into later, but at the beginning stages you don't really need to do too much with this. Just like base building, you don't need to panic about the blue stuff until you get much later into the next island. You'll also need 13 shards from the yellow crystals to pay the ferryman to take you to the next zone. You can also buy items from him directly, but you will come across other NPC traders in the world eventually too. So while you're gathering your 13 shards, also make sure you get enough materials to make a couple chests which you can take with you, and maybe possibly another crafting bench, so that as soon as you get to the next set of islands you can pretty much set up another little camp straight away. You can't take any of the items with you. You can craft a hammer that demolishes items and gives you resources back, but it will not pick up the items directly. Because it's a starting island doesn't mean it's not dangerous. You will find these fire plants, and they glow pretty much at night time to make it a lot easier, but during the day it can be easy to forget what they are, and you might come across a bit of an exploding time. If you are finding the game a little bit difficult and you're losing a lot of health, make sure you build a hammock. This will replenish your health in it when you sleep. You may have already worked out that you get some of the blue crystals from some of the blue golems, and you're going to come across other golems coloured later on that will give you certain coloured crystals too. The AI in this game certainly isn't amazing at the moment, but give it some time, I'm sure it'll improve. So it wouldn't be too hard to take on some of these smaller ones, but there will be much larger golems that you're going to come across later on. So I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I hope you realise how important it is, but do upgrade your bags so that you can hold more. Get the net bag and then go ahead and get the cloth bag as soon as you can, and it'll increase your slots quite a bit. Again, just remember to actually equip the bag itself. You can use the older ones later on, maybe leave them in a chest on this island, or just in case you've accidentally misplaced or lost anything. I don't believe there's any durability or any way that you need to repair any of your weapons or tools, but they may introduce that later on, so it's well worth getting these bags and keeping them safe somewhere. Especially as to craft the actual proper backpack, you will need one of the previous iterations. You will find plenty of resources hiding underneath the sea, so either make sure you go out at low tide or use your special vials to push the water away and grab some of them. Particularly you're going to need the fire coral to get the actual flare to go to the next area. You're not safe at sea though. If you swim too far, sometimes you'll get eaten by a shark if you're trying to go too far away. And you can see the smaller boats in distance. They are not friendly. They will fire cannonballs at you as you get a bit closer and offer a bit more danger once you start sailing yourself. When you've equipped and got all those precious resources, so basically take all the crystals with you, bottles, and like I said, a few storage chests and some of the crafting benches, you then go out into the water, click use on the flare, and you've got this red flag that will eventually go green when you're deep enough. It's got to be 15 meters. Once you let the flare go, a few seconds later the submarine boat will pop out. So as I said, it's a one-way trip. You don't get to control exactly where it goes, and you can instead just buy items from him if you really want to spend a bit more time on this island. He does sell some useful stuff. He also sells some stuff that you should never waste your actual shards on. Like cooked meat, it's so easy to go and kill some rats, and some of the other items in here seem pretty expensive for what they are. So I would only maybe buy some of the metals or maybe bottles if you really can't find any along the beach. This is also how you can go and get yourself a special ship. It costs 1,000 of the shards, so you can go ahead and sell all sorts of things to him. He'll pretty much buy almost everything. And I may do a proper rundown of exactly what is the best things to sell or buy or easiest to get hold of, just to show you guys how to make some of these shards really super quick. But you will also be able to build your own boat, I do believe, once you unlock the boatyard, which I'm about to get to in my more advanced tips guide. But as I said, 13 of the shards will get you travel to the next island and it will carry you there. It takes quite a few minutes, but eventually you will end up on a brand new island filled with a huge forest of pine trees, slimes to fight, bigger golems, and more puzzles to solve. And I would suggest this is where you really start to bunker down and find yourself a nice location to go ahead and build a base. Once here though, the boat will sink, so you won't be able to use it to go anywhere else, although you can go ahead and craft another flare and cool another one, but again it may cost you a bit before you can do that again. So in theory you could go back to the previous island if you really want to pick up particularly palm wood. And that is about it for this beginner's guide, just to show you some of the dangers that you'll face, and look out for the second video which is going to give you a detailed guide on how to complete this island and pretty much get to the next stages. But just to show you, there are some big old creatures that can do a lot of damage, and this final little tip, if you hold the B button on a controller you actually get to slide down a hill. You can use this to also dodge out the way of enemies sometimes, but it really works well when you hold it on a hill to get across the landscape quicker. Hope you've enjoyed it. If it's found it useful, do leave a like, make sure you subscribe for the best in crafting, survival, open world games, and I'll see you rat bags later.